Good morning, everybody. It is a Wednesday morning. It's the 5th of October, and we are live. Yeah, let's get cracking. We got a busy day ahead of us today. We've got lots of things to do and some very cool people to talk to. We've, of course, got the very talented and lovely Simphiwe. There she is, live in our studio in Johannesburg. Also today, I want to introduce you to someone called Mashudu Modau. And in case you don't know who Mashudu is, he's the founder of two amazing startups that are focused on digital content and enterprise economies. They're called Lucha and Compass Africa, and you can find out more about them by going to lucha.com or compass.africa. But we'll find out more about those, no doubt, in the next couple of seconds. He's an entrepreneur, creator, and you have to explain this one to us, Mashudu. What is an ecosystem specialist? What is that?
That's fancy.
So I mean, look, it sounds fancy, but it's really not. It's basically just trying to help other people that want to start, build, or grow businesses be able to do that in a much easier and better way. That's it.
All right. So, I mean, obviously the ecosystem then is the word that has something to do with the fact that no business operates in a vacuum. There's certain things that you need to have in place in order to start a business, and that's pretty difficult. I mean, that's where a lot of people fall off the wagon, right? So do you help them with the basics of getting that going, having a network, having some of the most obvious things in place in order for your business to start properly?
Yeah. So I think about 8 years ago, I started my first startup, basically just trying to help matriculants get past papers, which is, a very basic idea. But
wow.
I got into an incubator, and basically they tried to help me really figure out how to make money, right? So it's one thing to find something that you're super passionate about, but it's another thing to actually build a business around it. And I just found that entire process of finding the right places to learn about these things, the accelerators, the incubators, the investors, how to find funding, how to make sure your business is even ready for funding. All these things became so difficult to navigate as a young entrepreneur. So, on my next sort of 3-4 year journey around South Africa startup ecosystem, it was just like, I don't understand why there's so much friction and so much just silos around. Why can't we put this all on one platform where entrepreneurs can actually see all of these things that are available to them on one platform, and they can actually just like be able to navigate it in a much more efficient and effective way, so that they don't have to spend 4 years trying to figure out who's the right person to actually help them out, right? So
and
I just
making
started
those
this.
really those very expensive mistakes, right?
Exactly. And I think it was just about trying to, make sure that the next person that goes through this entire process, it's much more easier, and for them to really understand, for whatever stage you're in your business, this is the person that you should be speaking to. This is the organization you should be visiting. This is where you should be getting your incubation, your acceleration, and whatever else. So I started a bunch of projects. Now it's called Founder Source, where you literally have like the entire ecosystem on one platform, and you can just navigate. Okay, you know what? I'm looking for funding now. Here's all the funding guys, but also here's the type of funding that your business actually needs versus, just, generic, I just need money right now. That doesn't work anymore, right? Like there's so many more specifics and technicalities around it. So yeah, that's what being an ecosystem champion is. It's just really just helping other people navigate the ecosystem, but also helping the ecosystem understand entrepreneurs. I think we never talk about that. Like, I don't think a lot of the people that run these organizations understand entrepreneurs on the ground. So they sometimes need help from guys like me to say, hey, you actually speaking to the wrong entrepreneurs, right? You speaking to people that are trying to build, small businesses where your funding is actually designed for a startup. And that's completely different world.
So, I mean, do you think South Africa is a good environment for business? Do you think it's a very tough environment for business? Because I've heard a lot of business people, entrepreneurs, people who are trying to start up little enterprises. I've heard a lot of them complain that this place is not friendly. Big business is largely ignorant and not very helpful. Government, of course, we've got a small business department, but God alone knows what they do. And then we've got, the market itself, which is not really, it's not always geared to help the little guy. It seems that a lot of people in South Africa are quite happy to keep supporting the businesses they've always known and not risk it by going and changing, whatever it might be, a service provider, a seller, someone who's got a new product on the market. Is it a tough environment in South Africa? How would you rate that?
So I think entrepreneurship all over the world is, a very hard way to try and, build a sustainable life. But I think
Mm.
entrepreneurs in South Africa are playing the game on like extreme mode. You're not even just like, facing the usual
Exactly right.
challenges. And the usual challenges is just like,
Yeah.
does your business actually solve a problem? Are you building a solution that is like disproportionately creating more value for someone else? Um, Now you've got stuff like, the craziest thing is load shedding becoming one of the
Oh,
biggest drivers for small businesses actually closing down. Because if you're a restaurant that operates on electricity and you've got like 3-4 hours of your day just like gone,
yeah.
you really are just, you handicapped, right? Like they tying your hand behind your hand, your back, and you basically just navigating with one hand off of that already. So if you're losing
Yeah.
like let's say 6 hours of your productive time as a business to load shedding, you're probably not going to be able to navigate things as well as you probably could. That's become a new one. The other one is just again like back to the ecosystem thing is these organizations just don't speak to each other, right? They just don't communicate.
Mm.
They're not trying to actually make sure there's a flow where you've got like entrepreneurs going to the same people for the same help, and you got an entrepreneur who's stuck in the system, as to say. So
Yeah.
you'll go to one incubator, another incubator, and another incubator where it's like, yo, maybe it's not working out for you. So, oh, are you okay?
No, 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 dude. You just you really are sketching a very scary scenario, and this is where I get a little bit upset with people because we get sold this dream with entrepreneurship,
Mm,
and everybody wants to work for themselves. And I can tell you what, I have loved working for myself, and I've enjoyed starting this business, and it's a great feeling. On the good days, it's amazing, right? There's nothing else that you want
mm,
to do because you think I work with my rules. I can do what I want. I can hire the people who I think I need. We can find the business that I love doing with the clients I want to work with the most. But the struggle to get to a point where you actually are independent because you have to hustle your backside off, and it it is like, as you say, you're playing on extreme mode the whole time. There's no
yep,
one. There's no safety net. I think about people who who have jobs, and I mean, I've had jobs in my life too, where someone else is responsible for all the risk and you just get paid.
mm,
And it's way easier because no matter how it goes that month, if you get sick or you have to you have a death in the family or something happens, you can take time off, you can go away, there's someone else who can pick up the slack. It's not like that when you run your own business. There's no one who
no,
can pick up the slack. If you don't do it,
no.
it's not going to happen. And if you aren't there, the whole thing can't work as well. you know
Absolutely. And I also think like something that's very underrated is just like the mental health challenges that entrepreneurs have to face. Like
Shoo.
you're probably navigating so much while you're trying to build a business. And it's like, in a job, there's
And
probably
let's and
systems in
let's
place.
also be honest, it's also young people because older
Absolutely.
people older people don't have the energy to start something new. Once you're over 50, I don't think it's very easy for people to start something brand new. And in this country, because of all the challenges, you need to have huge reserves of energy to be able to put up with some of the stuff that goes on. So it's often people who've come, as you mentioned just now, with your first startup straight out of school,
Yep.
and there's no one saying, "Oh, by the way, this is how tax works," or "By the way, this is where you get financing." But if you have an investor, this is what you're going to have to put up with that investor because it's not free
Yep.
money. You know, Investor money is way more difficult because suddenly now you have to have board meetings. You're responsible for paying back that cash or delivering dividends and values immediately. And people don't have patience. They're not going to sit there for 6 years waiting for you to start turning profitable. If you're not there after
Exactly.
a couple of months, they're going to go, that money we gave you, we want it back. And you're like, but the company's not going properly yet. And then you're in big trouble. So just
Yeah.
quickly to talk a little bit about you, tell us your story. Like, where are you from?
Yeah. So Soweto born and bred.
Hmm.
And then sort of just spent a lot of my time in the East Strand, and then went to study at UJ. Already, like, I think high schoolish, I was already playing with stuff, right? Just trying to figure out like how I can create value for the world outside of the system, right? So the system being, you know, the normal thing that you're supposed to do. And a lot of people, young people, have fallen into this thing where it's just like, okay, this is what your parents tell you to do. You know, you go to high school, you go to varsity, you study. After that, you get a job, and you try and stay in that job for the next 30 years and try and make sure that you never lose that job and you keep things just going, right? Yeah. And in varsity, that's when the conflict really arose for me. It was just like, I didn't think it was it wasn't going to be the best way that I could create value for the world, right? So I think that's what entrepreneurs are people that just decide, you know what, I want to create value for the world because I realize that there's a problem, a really big and significant problem that people really need solved. I want to build that solution for a significant amount of people and be able to like scale that as a business, right? So I met startups when I was in, you know, varsity, and it was already too late because, you know, kids in America and other countries are learning about startups way earlier than that. I mean,
You
I
know
do
what?
remember like
This is scary because it's hard enough. You know, you think, oh, well, I'll start meeting these other founders, these brilliant people. Hey, I'll meet them in my late 20s, early 30s, and then I'll be able to hop on board with them and do cool stuff. Oh no, it's too late, you say.
it's so late. Like I
Jeez.
think we need to be introducing entrepreneurship way earlier. And I do remember like a small business day or entrepreneurship day in my primary days, but it was like, oh no, just like sell some boerewors rolls. And if that happens, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we just all eat the boerewors rolls and no one loses anything. And then you go into the real world and they're like, hey, those boerewors rolls cost money. You need to return that money. And someone gave you that money to do something, right? So I think, yeah, that journey of just like going, okay, I want to create disproportionate value for the world. And I don't think I'm going to be able to do it if I go through the normal route, right? So I started my first startup, which was PaperShare, just helping, you know, matriculants download past papers. And then I ran into a block, which was like, oh man, this is a really cool thing. A bunch of kids are talking about it. And then like this random day, so I emailed like, and Facebook, this is when Facebook Messenger was still a thing. I literally just like went on there and sent 100 celebrities, hey, I'm building this thing, please share it. And there's only one person that ever shared it. That was Trevor Noah. And it just shot up to like 50,000 users in like a period of 1 week. And it was crazy. I was excited. I was like, oh man, I've got a great business. And then I realized I don't actually make any money and there's nothing to sustain this thing. And this is like on a student budget, right? So I'm struggling to pay the guy that built the website for me. I'm struggling to pay the website host. And that's when I went into the incubators and I was like, okay, they're helping me really figure out, okay, wait, you can build a solution for a great problem, but you also still need to figure out how you'll actually make money. Who's going to pay for this amazing ride that you're on? And that's when I started realizing, oh no, this ecosystem is terrible to navigate. And young entrepreneurs are having to try and like figure out this really, really scary and dark and like very hidden system of like support and development for entrepreneurs. So I was like, okay, that's my next startup now, right? So that other one was just dead in the water. It was like, okay, this is not going to work. Kept it going for about 6 months until everyone just like stopped the views and people actually visiting the website just like flatlined. And then I built this other thing. I was like, okay, cool. Let's do this now. And then I found a new problem, which is like, you know, entrepreneurs, when they hear the stories, right? So you listen to radio, you watch entrepreneurs on TV. The only thing you ever hear is like, oh man, I've opened like 300 stores. I've got, you know, this much money in the bank.
Yeah. You
see my Instagram, it's popping.
And you're like, how do you get there? Because that's the hard part. You know, once you've got like 3 stores, you're pretty much in business. But I don't want to hear how you took 3 stores and made it 10, because that's a very niched story already.
Yeah, already. Like you are so far along in the process. And I was like, you know what? Let me start a podcast that actually speaks about those things, right? So like I went to go, okay, if all the radio stations are only talking to entrepreneurs to have victory laps, where's the safe space where entrepreneurs are actually talking about the process? I had this theory that if you know, a radio jockey ever asked someone, hey, during an interview, oh man, you're telling us about this amazing story. Your Instagram is popping. You're on all this like publicity. You're on radio, on TV, on billboards. The brands want you to do ads. This is going oh well. But how's your actual accounting? Like, how's your finances? How are the books of your business?
Well,
I
you
have a
see,
theory that most entrepreneurs would just vomit on the table. Just like, what? Why
not
would you
just the
ask?
entrepreneurs, but I mean the audience will, because if you actually have
Oh
to
yeah.
discuss accounting, if you have to discuss accounting, and I mean I'm not defending radio DJs. A lot of them are terrible and stupid, and it's one of the reasons I started this. But dude, if you start talking about accounting with my audience now, and I mean it's interesting, and don't get me wrong, it's important, but wow, can we just for a minute just break from this and just say, I mean it's just after 6. It's 17 minutes past 6 right now. It is boiling hot. Now, I know it's boring people who talk about the weather, but yosos. I mean, Simphiwe, we had all the air conditioning going at the studio yesterday, right? And it was still boiling.
Yes. Yes. We're currently
So
in the studio and it's quite the fridge in here, but
yes.
I'd rather take this over the hub. So the hub is scorching
Mm-mm.
hot. Like I do not advise anybody to walk into the hub because
Mm-mm.
you will faint of like just heat
Oh
and
my
you will
God.
not know what to do with yourself. And it's just one of those where I'm like, yay, spring is here, summer is here. But at the same time, it's like, whew, we were never ready.
No, I
Like,
know.
okay.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm excited about, I love this time of year, but yesterday I was so, when I got home from the office, it was like about 3. I was like, there's actually nothing I can do. Now, Mashudu, I don't know if you're going to say I'm lazy, but I had to have like a nap. I was buggered. Is that okay?
I
Are
don't
you
think you're
allowed to have a
lazy.
nap? Because you never hear, but you never hear from people in business and entrepreneurs who admit that they need a nap. They're like, oh no, you must be a lazy son of a bitch. You're going to sleep. The rest of us are working. There's this idea that if you're not working 24/7 and you're not always pushing, that you're lazy basically, and you're going to fail, which is nonsense. Because just like looking
Absolute
after
nonsense.
your mental health, you have to take a break. And people, you're an engine as a human being, but your engine will run out of power if you do not take the appropriate steps to look after yourself, right?
Oh yeah, I think hustle culture is bullshit. I think
Yeah,
and I think the next generation of entrepreneurs are thinking about this more consciously. It's like, yo, I actually want more for my life than just work. And it's
yeah.
cool to, work as hard as you possibly can to do the things that you care about. But at the same
Yeah.
time, you're just human, man. You just need to be able to find the gaps and the breaks to still, enjoy yourself in some way. Like, and it really doesn't matter if you don't enjoy it, right? It really doesn't matter.
Wait, just to
So
add on the hustle
yeah, go for
culture, I think some people have taken it a bit too far and now they don't do enough. Like they're just like, oh, I worked 3 hours, I need a break. Oh, I was in the office for like 2 days, I need a break. No, guys. Like I'm very much an advocate for taking breaks when you need to take a break. Like put in the work, get the
Yeah.
10,000 hours in and then reap the rewards. I'm not saying you need to work to a point where it's detrimental to your health, but like don't get too comfortable. And I think that also gets a bit dangerous where we see a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to come in at 8 o'clock. I'm going to work at 12 and leave at 3. Excuse me, who are you?
Yeah.
So
And
that balance is
Simphiwe,
very important.
this is such an important thing, because since COVID, I think people are extra lazy.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Since they've got this excuse of like, oh well, I only go into the office 2-3 days a week. The rest of the time, I'm going to look after my work and do it from home. Maybe they do, but don't tell me they're at maximum output, because nobody since COVID ended is back at maximum output yet. You agree with that, Mashudu?
Oh yeah, definitely. I also think work from home is really great for employees, but it's really hard for entrepreneurs and the founders and people that actually run businesses. Because at the end of the day, you're just like, I don't know if the people that work for me are going to work from home like at a high level because
Right.
you've got all these distractions. Like you're at home at the end of the day, and it's just like, oh, I don't know if I want to put in like all the hours.
Well, looking at Rusty's comments, he says, when my son was in grade 7, they had Entrepreneur Day. He was adamant that he wanted to make iced coffee. My suggestion was
Okay.
to do butternut soup. Well, we got the iced coffee mixture and he couldn't even cover his costs. Plus, it was a freezing cold day. Long story short, long story short, Plan B kicked in, and we did butternut soup, and we made a good profit. We even had to come home and make more for the teachers to take home for dinner. Anyway, it was a good lesson for my son. It's all
That's
about
super
your
cool.
net profit. Yeah, because iced coffee just sounds cooler than butternut soup. But if your weather's, if your weather's the opposite, I mean, this is such an important point. Like, as much as, and I said this the other day when I was feeling a bit down about the country, and if you talk to your family and friends, we all go through these stages, especially when if load shedding has hit you especially hard today, or like I've got water issues in my neighborhood today. I think a lot of neighborhoods do, because we've been warned, like, water shedding stage 2, because obviously we've got a lot of incompetent people who are not doing their job in the public sector. So that's why we all have to now pick up the slack. We all have to do this to save water. We have to be mindful when we have electricity issues, or try and get our own electricity supply, solar, batteries, all that kind of shit. But we all go through ups and downs. Now, I think you can look at this 2 ways. You can sit and complain about it, which we do on the show sometimes, right, Simphiwe? We complain,
Yes.
and we're justified, because fuck these people. They should be providing us with the stuff that we promised, that they promised us they could. Plus, the country is meant to go forward and get better and become more of an incredible place for not only entrepreneurs, but for families, for people who are growing up. There must be more opportunities. We've got a huge burgeoning nation of young people here who need to get ahead. They need to make money. They need to live their best lives. They need to create value. You can't do that in an environment where you're not getting any support at all from the government. So we get that. You're allowed to complain. But the other side of that coin is that everything that's wrong needs someone to fix it. And every person who can fix something can make a lot of money.
That's absolutely true. I think like that's the premise for startups, right? Like it's finding really deep and meaningful problems that affect a very big amount of people and building really cool solutions for it, right? And I think sometimes we get stuck in, and very much like Rusty's son here, just doing the cool thing, the thing that sounds like really fun. But you kind of also need the guy that's going, you know what, I want to fix the, water problem, cleaning a lot more water and being able to provide it to the people that actually need it. And there's a lot of startups doing this. A friend of mine, Murendeni, actually runs Kusini Water, which literally just has a system where you can filter river water and be able to make it drinkable. And I think like you've got people fixing problems like that, or a business like Yoko, which focuses on empowering people to be able to build their own businesses, right? So you've got all these really interesting guys doing these things.
Do you know Lungisa from Yoko?
Oh, so little known secret. Very known secret. I actually worked at Yoko for the last 5 years. I quit my job a month ago.
Nice.
So I worked with the team at Yoko for about 5 years, building up the community, building safe spaces for small business owners that want to, be able to, connect with people that are doing things like them. I think this is super important for entrepreneurs. Like if you have a community, it's easier to build things because you can just like text someone and say, hey, man, like I'm struggling with this thing.
Let's just explain to people what Yoko do. That those little machines that will enable you to do credit card transactions pretty much anywhere. That's Yoko. It was started by a group of guys, one of whom is this Lungisa that I'm talking about, who I met when we went to San Francisco in about 2016. We all went to Silicon Valley together, and I was so impressed by this guy. And I mean, there's so many people like him in South Africa. And on that particular trip, I think there were about 15 or 16 of us. You must see, we're still on a group together, on a WhatsApp group. And just yesterday, the guys were, and girls, because there's a bunch of girls on here as well. They were all congratulating one of these guys who has just been published in Venture Burn. He's just gone through another round of investment.
That's amazing.
They've raised $15 million for a digital identity business that started here in Cape Town. I mean, that's incredible, right? And this is now. This is not some story about like, oh, well, these people will have success at some point, or it's $1 million rand. This is $15 million that this guy and his business have started up. And these people are smart and they are very, very optimistic about where things are going. And
Definitely.
hell, you have to get the right attitude in place, even on those tough days. Don't you think that's true?
Oh yeah, that's everything. And that's why I was speaking about community, right? Like if you're building something and you're trying to figure out like what's the best way to do it, what are the best ways to connect with other people, and learn from other people, right? So I always think like you cut your learning curve so short when you have people around you that have done this before. So it's one thing to try and build things on your own and just like head down, just focus on the problem. It's another when you have a community around you, you have mentors, you have, you know, friends that are building things as well, because that actually just helps you be able to learn things and learn from other people's mistakes. You're not the first person to start a business, right? You want to learn from other people's mistakes as well.
Well, Super Jacob Zuma says, didn't Yoko retrench a ton of people last month? Now, it's possible they did. I noticed that Facebook and Google and Apple and Twitter are all retrenching people at the moment. They're giving them the
Shopify
option,
as well.
especially those people who said they didn't want to come back to the office. Well, these big tech companies who, by the way, have not laid off staff in 14 or 15 years. It's been on a constant up. They're all starting to lay off staff now. So you've got to know when Google and Facebook, and these are the guys who started all that stuff of like, oh, you can have a massage at the office, you know, we'll give you lunch, you can have a sleep at the office, you can go for mental health checks at the office. If you want to have sushi, then there's a restaurant that will give you free sushi. You know, they were doing all those things that we thought for the last 10 or so years were like the coolest things in the world. Like if I'm going to work somewhere, then it must be there. They're all starting to scale back on that stuff at the moment. And let it be a sign for everybody else that it is about to become a meaner, tougher place. The world economy is in big trouble at the moment. So if Yoko have part of retrenching people isn't like, you don't want people to lose their jobs. That's not the reason a company retrenches people. No one's walking around. And I hate the way that they tend to characterize CEOs and founders and bosses as these mean people who are just trying to ruin other people's lives. And it's all about the bottom line. It isn't. Sometimes a company needs to be right-sized. I mean, a lot of businesses learned this during COVID too, right? You have to, if you want to survive, because you can keep everyone, you can pay everyone whatever they want, but you're going to last 3 months and then no one's going to have anything. The whole business will collapse. Or you strategize, you sit down, you see we can cut costs, you see how many people you really need, especially if you've maybe overhired in the beginning or you've hired the wrong people. And then you have to get everything to fit. And if you don't do that, you won't survive.
Yeah. I think like not enough of media is talking about just how difficult the environment is now, not just for large corporations or startups, but everyone. Like everyone is having a tough time and making some very difficult decisions just to make sure that the businesses can survive and still be able to drive the impact that they care about, right? So I do think like we need to be more conscious about these things and how, you know, they need to make these very difficult decisions just to make sure that the businesses survive.
All right, well, let's talk about some other things because Simphiwe has got a whole agenda here and we've got to get to some headlines too. But we've got a new episode of the Third Draft podcast, right, Simphiwe?
Yes. So, for those who don't know, the Third Draft is a podcast that myself and Mash we host, and we talk to creatives about the business of content creation, the realities of being a content creator. And this week, we talk to Abu Boy. He's a filmmaker, a cinematographer, videographer who's doing really incredible things. He was recently featured in the GQ magazine. So, if you get that magazine this month, you'll see his feature in there, and he basically talks about like the behind the scenes of the industry of like how much money is really circulating when Netflix says, hey, we are releasing a new documentary or new series. What does that mean, and how much money is actually in circulation, which is quite a lot. I was surprised how much videographers get paid. I was like, oh, okay, this might be a lucrative, profession to go into.
Again, used to, because we know that, last year was probably the last year that big production companies were
Yeah.
signed off. Even Hollywood is pulling back dramatically on the kinds of large scale productions that they were okaying last year. We've seen this in companies like Netflix are under huge pressure at the moment because people are looking at the bottom line and going, hang on a second, Netflix, which was on an upward trajectory like no other. You remember when Netflix shares were valued at like 4 times what they are now. And Mashudu, you know about this. They're just not doing that anymore. I'm interested also, Simphiwe, you mentioned the word magazine. And I haven't thought about this for a long time when you talked about GQ. But there are still a lot of quite successful niched magazines. It's the big ones that have taken a hit. You know, it's the mass media magazines, the ones that used to sell hundreds of thousands of copies. Those guys have been hit very hard. And, you know, Fly Fishing Weekly or whatever, those still carry on. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I think for me, it's quite interesting to see how some industries are kind of adapting because we currently living in the creator economy. So for a lot of creatives, this is the best time to start your podcast, YouTube channel. It's the best time to start pumping out content because all the platforms are incentivizing you to put up content. Like you put up a TikTok video, you'll get paid for it. Like TikTok is saying now, if you recommend a friend, or 9 friends, you'll get 900 Rand. So now they're incentivizing people to join these platforms. So in terms of like that economy, it's really starting to open up. And in South Africa, it was quite small. So it wasn't like, you didn't hear a lot of people say, I'm a full-time content creator. And now that's becoming like, oh yeah, no, I quit my job and I'm now charging 50,000 for a campaign. And you're like, excuse me? So that's also the cool side of it, like seeing how even though like in one aspect there's a downscale, there's also an upscale in another aspect where you're seeing like, oh, we're going to need more graphic designers. We're going to need more people that are, you know, able to edit. So those are industries that are kind of getting more populated and taken more seriously. Other than like your chartered accountants or your nurses and doctors, where they're also seeing the harsh, downscale of the economy. So that's also like something really cool that I'm like, what? Okay. There's a bit of light.
Well, one last thing before we get to these headlines, and Mashudu, maybe you can help us with this. We also live in this funny economy in South Africa where people, they're good at spending, but they're not actually that good at making the money. And they love showing off how they're spending. They don't show off how hard it is to make that money. I mean, you go onto social media, which can be such a death trap. And what Simphiwe is saying right now is absolutely right, that this is a creator economy. And you can go on there and you can either compete with all the people who are showing off how great their lives are, which I think is a bit of a dead end, because who wants to see that, especially if you're not doing well, which is the case for most people. Or you can go and pay attention to the people who are doing the slogging, doing the selling. And they're probably not sitting boasting on social media because they're doing the actual work, right?
Yeah, I think I think of YouTube as actually being the biggest university in the world. Now also you're seeing a lot of TikTok content being focused on helping people actually be able to learn things that can help them build skills and actually build businesses as well. So you are seeing like a trend now where it's like, you know what, it's cool if you show off your new watch or the amazing new car that you have. But I actually want to learn about the process. Like, what did it take for you to, become a creator, be able to, buy the right equipment, and how you put out the content, how you make the content, how you connect with people, how you build communities, how you monetize those communities. And you're seeing a lot more creators like really go into that process because they're realizing that a lot of people actually want to learn from them. They want to be able to go, oh, wait, I watched your content and now I actually have something that I can actually build something with, rather than just like, oh man, I'm so happy that your life is so perfect.
Yeah, there's nobody who really and truly is interested in watching how beautiful and perfect someone else's life is. That's just nonsense. All right, let's look at some headlines, see what's happening in the world around us this morning. There are the establishment of 80 sexual offences courts that have been taken into consideration. Now, this is something that is actually going to go ahead. Apparently, Justice and Correctional Services Minister Ronald Lamola said that the draft Gazette notice for the designation of sexual offences courts has been vetted by the Office of the Chief Law Advisor. So, I mean, these are the processes, and really, government takes such a long time to get things going. But They want us to get excited because they're opening up 80 sexual offences courts across the country. It's going to take a while for those to open up, but this will go a long way to addressing gender-based violence, and I think it's a good thing. So, we often talk about how government's not doing anything, but here they are, and they're going through these very laborious, very boring, very tedious processes. Eventually, at the end of it, we will end up with sexual offences courts, which will, of course, allow the bad guys to be prosecuted a lot faster and allow women in particular, who are the victims of gender-based violence, to be able to seek faster and more effective legal consequences for themselves as victims, where they can seek redress, but also to seek consequences for the perpetrators, which we are all very much invested in getting done in this country. There's no one who's sitting around going, no, we don't want the rapists to go to jail. I think everybody in South Africa, if you had to find one issue that the average voter, with the exception of the rapists, who of course will never admit it's them, if you want to find something that everybody agrees on, this is one of those things. So the Free State will get 17 of these courts. Gauteng will get 12. The Western Cape will get 11. The Northern Cape 11, 8 in KwaZulu-Natal, 7 in Mpumalanga and the Northwest, and 5 in Limpopo, 3 in the Eastern Cape. So this is all going to go ahead. So we're holding thumbs, and hopefully they get it going very, very soon, because you know how long these things take, but the sooner the better, right? Good news. This is Simphiwe, I can hear.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. Get on with it, right?
Yeah, but I'm also a bit skeptical, and I think the biggest issue is the police. Like, that's your first point of contact. And most of the time when it's like a domestic violence case, they'll be like, hey, just go sort it out at home, or, what did you do? And they don't really handle it in the most appropriate manner. So yes, it's great that they creating all of this, but like, if your first point of contact is already discouraging you from opening up that case, then there's no point. We can have 100 of these open, but is there going to really be a change? So I'm looking at it from that point to say, okay, are they also going to address the police officers to say, this is how you handle this matter, and when somebody comes to open up a case, this is what you do, so that they feel heard and seen? I don't know.
Let's see. South Africa's new tobacco law may ban most vaping liquids. Oh, here you go. So they have to get involved in this. I mean, I know that vaping is probably not that good for you. Neither is smoking, neither is drinking. Neither are a lot of the things that we like to do. But, we've got this obsession, it seems, in the health department in this country with fighting people who want to smoke. And vaping has become a big thing. I'm sure you guys both agree. That's a business and a half, right? E-cigarettes and vaping devices face tighter regulations as part of government's latest tobacco plan that has been passed on to Parliament. By tobacco plan, they don't actually care about your health. They care about getting more tax money for things like this. So they see people switching from cigarettes to vape, and they want some more tax money. That's what it boils down to, right?
I mean, you've seen like I think it's an American company. I forgot what the name is, but they've just gone through an entire process where the government actually sued them because the vaping liquid actually caused a lot of harm, but more so because their advertising appealed to teenagers, and they were trying to get a lot more teenagers and younger people hooked on these things, right? So I think there is like some responsibility that needs to come from like the organizations making these things, and making sure that they're not necessarily like causing any harm as well.
Well, if we're going to talk about things that are addictive to young people and that are harming teenagers, we need to talk social media. That's what we need to talk.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I see the comment as well.
Yeah, if you want to help young people, let's get onto that. I see everybody's saying here, Elon Musk is buying Twitter again. Yes, he is. He's really messing with them, because now suddenly he's going to be buying it again, according to reports this morning. So we'll keep an eye on that. We will also check in on Revix in a moment or two and find out beyond Bitcoin what is happening in the world of cryptocurrency, and also what's going on in the market at the moment. So we'll talk to Brett from Revix in just a short while. Just before we move on to him, another headline. This Joburg thing is so infuriating. If you live in Johannesburg, obviously the DA Herman Mashaba's Action SA and the ANC are all at loggerheads at the moment. There's the new mayor, Morero, who we had on, Dada Morero, who we had on the Burning Platform 3 weeks ago, Popalatse from the DA, and then Herman's people, and they're all fighting about this. And of course, I don't care who's wrong or right. I just want these people to get on with delivering services. Do you care who's in charge? Probably not. You see them, they're all dancing and protesting each other and doing, and then they're celebrating when they win, and then they're crying when they lose, and they're all threatening to take each other to court. At this point, if you own property, or if you rent, or if you live, or you're trying to eke out an existence in Johannesburg, any of those categories, you want water, you want electricity, you want these fucking politicians to stop messing around. Get on with it. I don't care. Do you care?
No. Just get someone that does the job at this point.
Right. Jesus. I mean, how long will it take these guys to realize that? And the more they do this stuff, the less we care about them. And the worse it gets for all these parties, because there isn't one of them at this stage who's got, a good reputation in Johannesburg. Fly Sapphire is raised.
Oh, sorry about that. No, let's
get
into
ahead.
it. No. Oh, no. I was just wondering, you clearly have very strong views, and I think they're very important. Is there a sign of hope you have, like some optimism, especially with Joburg?
You know what? They've got to realize that actually having the position is it's not about their egos or about power or about control. It's about responsibility. Like, I wouldn't want that job. You know why? Because then you suddenly have to be responsible to all these people in Johannesburg. And it's boring stuff. It's like billing, it's service provision. It's not glorious and grand. It's not about driving around in a blue light brigade or wearing a mayoral chain. It's about doing work. And none of these guys want to work. These politicians, they want all the glory and none of the responsibility. Anyway, so here's a story about Fly Sapphire. They've raised concerns about flight capacity constraints. They say that the liquidation of Comair will have a devastating impact on domestic air travel during the festive season. So apparently their CMO, Kirby Gordon, says they are working hard to add more flights to their fleet, also hire more staff. He says the airline wants to avoid hiking ticket prices. Now, if you have bought a plane ticket locally, domestic, traveling in South Africa between Johannesburg, Durban, Cape Town, Joburg, wherever it might be, you will have realized how expensive these have got, right? Because there's very, very high demand, very low supply. And if you want to travel a route that might have cost you, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Rand before for a return is now going to be 4, 5, 6,000 for that return. So it is not fun anymore. And this is how it's going to go. And this is a direct result of SAA falling apart and being mismanaged, of Comair having been mismanaged, of how many airlines are left? We counted them the other day. There's Fly Sapphire, there's Airlink, there's SemAir, who do 1 or 2 routes. And what else? I'm leaving one out. Fly Sapphire, Airlink. Lyft is the other one, correct. Lyft is new, but they seem to be doing a pretty good job too of keeping their heads above water. I mean, it's a tough business to be in. Your margins are very tight, but have they been run badly by some very, very bad operators? So now we're all left to pick up the pieces and pay extra for those flights. How do you guys feel about that? Mashudu?
It's crazy. I think I used to take a lot of trips to Cape Town earlier this year. 3,000 Rand was pretty okay for a really good, flight, whereas now it's around 7. I checked it the other day, and it's making it almost unsustainable to travel within the country, which is crazy, right? And I think it's going to have a massive impact on a lot of people that work between cities. And as much as you have like remote and work from home and all these things, there are some things where you do need to travel, and it's just getting like unsustainable at this point.
Well, those are all the headlines we've got time for this morning. It's time to turn our attention to Beyond Bitcoin with Revix, and we're going to talk to Brett, who we've spoken to before. Hey, Brett, how are you doing, man? Nice to see you.
You too. Thanks for having me on again.
Good. All right. So, as always, the market is in constant flux. Lots of people are talking about where you should put your money. Lots of people, we spoke to Sean about this just the other day. People are nervous about when to get back in. Is it bottoming out? We had a guy from markets.com on Monday talking to us about the oil price and how that's fluctuated this week. Gold, obviously. So, what's your overall view at the moment, and how are you feeling about the market and the world? And please, can we address the dollar?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's quite an interesting question, and a lot of people, it's on everyone's minds, right? Because it kind of seems to be the same old, same old. We're seeing, inflation running wild around the world. We're seeing central banks hike aggressively to try cut inflation down and fight this. And this is all kind of known by the markets, and it's been known for quite some time. So, yeah, it's actually a bit of a scary time for a lot of people. It's an environment where you're getting squeezed on your finances from both sides, right? From higher inflation and from higher rates. So naturally, people are asking this question, well, what do I do? How do I position myself next? The current phase is already known by the market. So what's the kind of next phase? And to break it down, as you said, they're basically wanting to know, is the bottom in and is the worst kind of over, right? Which is what everyone wants to know. And we can never obviously be 100% sure on this stuff, but I do like to kind of look at history during these times, because as we know, it's quite a telling stat, and it's the age-old kind of thing that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And obviously this is not financial advice, but kind of based on history, I found this fascinating stat, and I can kind of share it with you guys. And it says that throughout history, or in the US at least, which is pretty much the main market, whenever the market basically seems to bottom within the first third of an interest rate hiking cycle. So what that's saying is, from when interest rate hiking starts at a central bank to when they finish up, in that first third, the market seems to realize that the end's in sight, markets are forward looking, and it pretty much bottoms out in that first third. So it's widely believed in South Africa, especially, or in the US, that our hiking cycle is going to end at the end of 2023. So that currently makes it about a 22-month hiking cycle from when we started to the end. That's quite long, right? Yeah. But if we use this third rule, it translates to about a 7.3 months in. Odds are, based on history, a bottom's already been locked in. We're currently in month 7. So that's pretty close, eh? That's pretty close. That's saying, like, if history repeats, we're nearly there based on history, right? Obviously there's outliers and there's a whole bunch of things that could go wrong. But it's quite a cool framework to look back and say, hey, despite all this craziness, as you said, the dollar, Russia, Ukraine, the pound getting smacked, all this craziness happening around the world. Well, if we take a step back and look at history, there was craziness then, and this rule's kind of held fast. So that's kind of a little.
You mentioned Russia, Ukraine, and obviously that could be an extenuating circumstance, because what you're talking about is the performance of a market in an inert atmosphere, in a world where things are more or less stable. And one of the things that can really destabilize things at the moment is an escalation in the problem between Russia and the Ukraine, and that ongoing invasion of the Ukraine by Russia, and what that will do to the stability of Europe and America and Asia and everywhere. So what do you think, if that continues to go badly, and it seems to me that nobody is talking about peace, or no one's talking about ending this war, no one's talking about de-escalation at the moment, what does that do to cryptocurrency, in your opinion, Brett?
So it's an interesting one. I think, look, as you said, no one's really speaking about peace at the moment. So I think we got to kind of think that these markets are pricing in a lot of this. So a lot of people will be risk off. A lot of people have been risk off,
including crypto.
Yeah, I think including crypto, there's some assets that, crypto is kind of seen as a risk on asset still. Right? It hasn't matured into this possible risk off asset. There's a couple that are becoming these risk off assets, such as you get PAXG, which is your tokenized gold token, right? That's basically buying gold. So that can be seen as a risk off asset. Bitcoin's kind of seen as this new digital gold that's starting to kind of play its place as a risk off asset in this space. But I mean, we've seen it across the board, right? Most equities have been getting hit, and yes, Russia, Ukraine is kind of in this weird like limbo phase. But we're hoping that, markets are really forward looking. Most of this is already priced, and I really doubt that there's going to be a missile fired anytime soon against the US, at least. You know what I mean?
I certainly hope you're right. While we're talking to you about that, let's just talk about Pax Gold for a second, because gold is usually a safe haven when things are going tits up, and the world economy at the moment is unpredictable. And whether or not, your prediction about hitting the bottom now eventually is correct or not. And, you're not Nostradamus. So let's be clear about this. You're not giving people financial advice saying that this is absolutely the bottom, but you're saying historically, this is the formula that it seems to follow. But something like gold, during times of crisis and uncertainty, and you could certainly say we're in that situation now, seem to be doing very, very well. So have you got any other products that you're launching at the moment that are in that arena, or are there any other products that are going to take advantage of the current set of circumstances?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, in these kind of times, I read a report from Bridgewater that said, what was one of the biggest hedge fund managers in the world, run by Ray Dalio, and they also did this kind of like historical look back and said, in a time where uncertainty is there, if we push through to the end and we start to see interest rate cutting, where inflation might be still around, what kind of does well? And Pax and gold kind of covers all these areas, right? Uncertainty, interest rate cutting, inflation. It's kind of your basket. And so, yes, we have obviously Pax G on the platform, but we also have another product called the Inflation Shield, which is a optimized bundle that takes basically the inflation hedge of yesterday, which we call gold, and adds it to the inflation hedge of today, which is called Bitcoin. And we've run it through basically an optimized algorithm that is trying to optimize for the most return versus a unit of risk you take on. And what it came out with is this 75% gold weighting with a 25% Bitcoin weighting. And that's basically like a safe haven bundle that says, hey, I don't know when the market's going to turn, but when it turns, I want to have a bit of crypto exposure. But in that interim, I want, the safety of gold. And it's become quite a popular, bundle for times exactly like this. Like, hey, I don't know when the bottom's in, but I don't want to miss that first uptick when it comes. So I want to sit in gold, hold 75% of gold, and then when market turns, have this kind of tail kick with Bitcoin when you're holding Bitcoin in that bundle.
Right. Mashudu, anything do you want to ask Brett quickly when it comes to this? I'm sure that you're paying attention to, various investment classes. Cryptocurrency continues to be something that I'm sure you and all your entrepreneurial friends are always talking about. Something you want to throw in before I bring up the last question for this morning?
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually saw a stat the other day that said NFT sales have dropped 95% from when they were at their highest. I'd really be curious to hear from you just what you think, the future looks like for that area, because a lot of people are unfortunately now calling it, the scam of the century and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? I mean, 95% off the top is a huge way down.
That's a lot.
And it's got to kind of be said that, when this NFT craze kind of happened, a lot of it was driven by someone just putting out an art piece and flooding the market with these projects. I think there was like, in that Solana summer, there was 7 Solana projects coming out a day of like 100,000 pieces. It was just flooding markets, and I think people were using NFTs, the tech behind it, just to sell art, where that's not really where the power of this tech is. The power of this tech is in the transfer of ownership, tokenized housing and transfer of deeds and stuff like this. It's not really all based in art, and I think everyone went straight to this art quick buck scenario and flooded the market, and you saw basically everyone pull back and say, well, in a time of uncertainty, everyone looks for use cases and utility, and a lot of those were just an art piece from another person trying to make it big and no real utility attached to it.
I call it
that's
I call it the Paris Hilton index. When Paris Hilton is interested in something, you should get the hell out of it.
Yeah, that's why you see the only NFTs with value still are the ones that actually have use cases, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. What do you think the future of Web3 and crypto startups is? With where the market is now, are people still as excited about building products and startups based off of crypto and Web3 and stuff like that?
Yeah, I actually went to a conference the other day, and people are actually more excited now because it's in these times that your Ubers and your PayPals and things came out of times where everyone says, "Hey, this is done." Or in that huge crash in the internet bubble, a lot of your big companies, your Facebooks, your Googles, everything kind of came out of this. And
Yeah.
there's kind of that same feeling right now around the world. It's like, hey, we've got this product. Let's focus on building it and building and building and building. And then when the time comes and the market turns, you are at the perfect stage to take advantage of this. So it's building phases around the world. Yeah.
It's not my opinion, because who cares what I think, but a famous investor who's actually South African born, he's in Silicon Valley, a guy called David Sachs. He's been a major investor in some incredible projects in Silicon Valley and all in tech. He said that actually this is the best time for those startups because they are lean and mean. There's none of that fat, gluttonous stuff going on that when there's lots of money flying around that people just become lazy and useless. And he says these companies can also afford to buy really, really good talent at a market competitive price now, where, when the market's, when everybody's riding high, then people have to overpay for things. And in business, this is actually where you start seeing a lot of new necessity come out of the market. There's, people they're not looking for luxuries. They're looking for absolute necessities. And you develop products now at a reasonable rate that people will use. So I think that's a very good question, Mashudu. I'm glad to have you on the show today.
I mean, you see that backstop that most people in startups have kind of seen is you try hire good tech or good coders, and their backstop is, well, I can get a job at Google for double the price.
Yep.
Right? They're no longer hiring. So that kind of backstop falls away.
So let's just quickly talk about promotions, because you guys have got some promotion. You've always got a promotion going on, and we'd like to know what those are so we can take advantage of them. Anything special happening at the moment?
Yeah, so we kind of got one running and one about to start. The first promotion that's currently running is on PaxG, and it's fee-free for customers at Revix to buy. So this kind of gives you a seamless way, an inexpensive way to get exposure to gold and kind of protect yourself in these uncertain times, and maybe position yourself for this kind of next phase of the market, right? And that's running till the 31st of December, actually. So it's quite a long one. And then second promotion that we will be running is we are actually launching Dogecoin on Friday onto the platform. So we're going to add our first meme coin to the platform, and that will be fee-free for customers to buy from Friday for 1 week to celebrate its launch.
Okay, I remember Sean saying not so nice things about Dogecoin a while ago. So that's an interesting development. I suppose you've got to make things available to people.
At some time, you've got to realize that this thing's been in the top 10 longer than most assets that have been on a platform, right? And it's got a use case. I mean, it's the number one tipping cryptocurrency in the world, so it's got a big use case now.
Good stuff. So, I mean, gold, if you are looking at the markets and you're saying, oh, I need some gold, but you don't have to put it in your teeth or actually put it in the safe. You can own it digitally. Go to find out more from Revix.com. You can also go and follow them on social media at Revix Invest, but head over there, and it is the smart way to invest in crypto and all kinds of other stuff. You can sign up effortlessly today and own a diversified portfolio of the world's top cryptocurrencies. And it stays up to date with the ever-changing market. Brett, thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for showing me on, guys.
Good stuff. There's Brett Hope Robertson from Revix.com. It is already 7 o'clock. We've also got Mashudu on with us this morning. And if you haven't heard from Mashudu before, you need to be listening to what he's up to. Mashudu Modau and Simphiwe Mtetwa. We've got lots more coming at you in the next hour. Stick around. cliffcentral.com. It's a busy Wednesday morning, as always.
Are you ready?
Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, we are live. It is Wednesday morning, the 5th of October, cliffcentral.com, and we got loads of stuff to talk about this morning. Mashudu Modau on the line and Simphiwe in the studio as well, talking to us about all kinds of things. And we've got a couple of guests popping in. Anthony Mederer will be with us in a short while. We'll talk about history, but we'll also talk about sharks. And recently there were those shark attacks in Plett. If you don't like going into the water, chances are you like that even less since you've heard about those shark attacks. But I want to talk first about some things that are going on. A lot of people, Simphiwe, I know you, I know Simphiwe feels strongly about this. Do you think Ocsober needs to be a thing? Because really, you're missing out on one of the best months of the year if you're going to force yourself to have to be sober. I mean, I would rather do this in the middle of winter, frankly, when, you know, nobody's doing anything and it's miserable. And you don't go outside and you don't really need to leave the house. Then you can do a sober month somewhere in the middle of the year. Prove to yourself you can, and then get it out of your system before the summer. I think it's a terrible time to do that now.
You know, people that do that, Gareth, worry me. I'm just like, do you drink that much that you need to dedicate a whole month to you not drinking? I'm sorry, what's going on, fellow comrade? Because why? Why are we doing a whole October? Chief, if you don't want to drink, don't drink. But why are we going a whole month? You dedicate, you're like, oh, it's been 12 days. Ooh, it's been 20 days. What's wrong? What is the real problem? Leave us alone. You're in it on your own. I'm sorry. If you want to do that, great, but let other kids live their best lives, okay?
Yeah, I've always, listen, I think there's nothing wrong with you proving to yourself that you can do without something for a month, because if you can do without it for a month, then you're probably not an addict and you're probably not completely devoted to that and obsessed with that thing. And I think it's good for everybody to detox from whatever it is at some point. You know, you got to do a digital detox at some point. You have to get away from your devices, because I still think that's way more addictive than tobacco or alcohol or drugs or any of that other stuff. That little machine rules your life. I know it rules mine. So maybe that's something that people should do, is to get off the devices. How do you feel about this stuff, Mashudu? You're being very quiet.
I mean, I think like Ocsober is a thing mainly because I think we drink. South Africans, I think the numbers are crazy, right? And we're just not having that conversation. And maybe there's also a little bit of pressure from social media because October is a thing and everyone's talking about it. Some people just want to be part of something and just feel like they belong with everyone else. So maybe there's a bit of that pressure as well. Just like, oh man, everyone's being sober, so let me just like also join in this. Like, I don't even know.
I'll tell you what, you can save a lot of money. You talk about business and entrepreneurship and all that stuff. People are looking for financing. Maybe you wouldn't have to if you didn't spend so much on drinking. I mean, if you really want to get depressed, I did this once. I worked out just based on, my monthly kind of bills, what I spend on alcohol, either when I have people around here or if I go out and so you multiply, you just extrapolate that out on a spreadsheet. You'll be so depressed when you look at how much money you have wasted over the years essentially on hangovers, because the only net result of drinking is going to be the hangover. Let's be perfectly honest about this. So if you add it all up, I've spent an absolute fortune on hangovers, and I don't like thinking about it too much.
It's kind of crazy. Do you think it affects you with the work though? Like being as hungover as much as you are? But also, it's hard to answer that and not admit to having a drinking problem, right?
No, so I know, for example, I mean, I don't drink at all during the week anymore. I used to, maybe up to about 5 years ago, I would still do, 1 or 2 nights in the week where I'd go out for dinner, or I'd go and join some people, or I'd go to these, these events that used to be a part of our diaries. We all used to do these things. You'd go to, openings and launches, and there were also social occasions that were happening all the time. I just don't do those things anymore. And I use all kinds of excuses, but the fact is, I just don't like to feel shitty during the week. And if I do have a big night, it'll be a Friday or a Saturday, not both. And then I'll need the Sunday to recover. So I'm usually okay. By Monday, I'm back in the swing of things. I mean, it's not always a perfect science, because sometimes on Monday, you're still not right. But you're right. South Africans, we do have a problem. We drink way too much in this country.
Oh, yes.
Way too much. But I also think like lifestyle, right? Like I think especially with the events, and like I think networking events are so big on alcohol. A lot of like entrepreneurship stuff is big on alcohol as well. And like I think we need to evolve past that. I think you could do so much better if you're just connecting with people in like much more authentic ways, and like just having fun with them rather than just like drinking as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, but I also think like people are just greedy. You take places like Farmers Market, which was originally like wholesome vibes. You bring the kids, and now it's become a group spot. Like people are partying and dancing on a Sunday. And you're like, excuse me, when did we get here? So it's also like it's that thing of like, in as much as I want to leave the house and just enjoy a great afternoon, you can't, because now we're going to turn up. And then if you're not turning up on Sunday, it's Mohodu Mondays, and then it's Puza Thursday, then you're doing drinks on Friday. Of course, something's happening on Saturday. And mates, like Sunday, let's do Sundowners. It's too much, guys. I can't even keep up. It's way too much.
Yeah.
Some of these comments are just killing me though.
So let me get to some of those, because there's some funny stuff going on in the comments. Sun Marie says, I quit drinking in August. Best decision of my life. There are so many more benefits to not drinking than perceived benefits of actual drinking. Vincent says, being a weekend alcoholic, I'm definitely not okay with Ocsober. Alcohol and hanging out is the thing I like being an adult. And then Wayne says, Mashudu is such a dope gent. We need to see more of him, please. Yeah, I'm surprised it's taken us so long to get you on the show. Carl says, I'm doing Oct Jamison, where I have 8 Jamisons every day. So far, I haven't missed a day.
Oh,
Jesus.
Carl.
There's no way.
Wow.
So wait, when do you start? Do you just knock them all back like at 4 o'clock? You're like ga, with the shots, or are you start with one at 6 o'clock, and then at 8 o'clock you have another one? Carl, how are we doing this?
I don't want to know, because it's going to frighten me and it's going to make me very uncomfortable.
You kind of don't want to learn about this, right? You don't want to have the formula and the model
Carl,
to drink like that.
I don't want to party with Carl. I'm sorry, we're not going out together. If you can do 8 on your own during the week, mates, when we're out at Groove, what's going on? He's going to be like, yeah, let's do 20 Jägermeisters. Boom.
David says, dangerous. You can't claim to drink all day if you don't start in the morning. Oh. Yes. I must be honest with you. I'm a total nerd when it comes to like I can't do day drinking in the week. There's just no way. You see these people, and I'm sure you guys, even if you don't go out often, or you do, you see these people who have these long boozy lunches in the middle of the week, and you're like, when are you working? How do you get that right? You see these people, they start at like 1 o'clock, and then before you know it, they've got a lunch that goes on until 4, and they're Ubering home because they can't drink anymore. They're going to collect their car in the morning. You're like, really? On a Wednesday? Woo.
See, that's where the data
different
is.
story.
No, that's a different lifestyle. Some of these comments are just ridiculous. It speaks to our lifestyle as well. I'm not sure this is what people are talking about when they say work-life balance. Like,
no.
There's no way that's what we're talking about.
Yonda says, I'm not a quitter, so I shall never stop drinking. I have missed only 10 days of this year not drinking. Yes. And by the way, because it's mostly the guys who are coming in here and saying, they're drinking Jameson and they're drinking beer or whatever. And there are a lot of women, and I'm talking about the moms, these very respectable moms in like nice suburbs who go and fetch the kids in their soccer mom cars and everything. And they're putting away a bottle of Chardonnay every day. And I'm thinking that's just as competitive as these guys are with the beer.
Definitely. There's a reason why it's called Mummy's Cup and no one can touch it, because there's only strong stuff in there for people over the age of 18. But definitely, I think there was a stat that said like South African women drink more than South African men. So yeah, ladies know how to kick it back. I just think they keep quiet about their drinking, as opposed to guys who will be like, yeah, I'm out and about drinking with the boys. Where ladies are like, I'm with the girls and I'm having a bottle of wine or 2 or 3.
So, you've hinted at something here, and we've got to get an update because people want to know, like, what's going on in your dating life at the moment. We get regular updates from the other Mash, not Mashudu, who's on now, but Mashiane. So what do we got going on with you?
I've realized, Gareth, that I do not need any dating apps whatsoever. I wasted my time on Tinder for 3 weeks. No, being on this show has been the biggest dating pool of my life. I've gotten more DMs from guys who've like, I've seen you on the Gareth Cliff show on YouTube. I just like to take you out for lunch, and basically shoot their shots. So I have a few dates coming up, and yeah. So the show has kind of been one of those where I'm like, okay, I really don't need a dating app, guys. Like, you see me on the show and they will find me on Instagram. I'm so shocked. They'll find me on Instagram and then DM me and say they'd like to take me out.
This is fascinating stuff. I'm just like...
Have you experienced that, Mashudu? People just shooting their shots?
Oh no, I'm a very committed guy. Like, I've been in a relationship for about 6 years, and I think it's the most important thing you can do for yourself. If you're trying to build stuff, is have some stability in your life, right? Like, I think entrepreneurship gives you enough excitement. You don't need anything outside of that. So you kind of want the rest of your life to be as settled as possible, as calm as possible, and feel good as well. So I do think that's so
mature and sensible. Usually people who are hugely driven in business are also, and it's not always the truth, but in my experience, it's usually true, that they also are trying to get as much activity going in their personal lives as possible. But you're right, balance is essential here, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. But also think about like some of the most popular entrepreneurs. They have the worst marriages, divorce rates, and go through so much from a relationship perspective. I also think it's just like an extreme sport to date an entrepreneur. You are mad if you do that. I think you're a crazy person.
People I must avoid completely. Okay.
Oh no, definitely avoid. If someone says to you, "Oh no, first date. Hey, what do you do? Oh no, I'm building this thing. Oh cool, we are done. Close this chapter. You need to move on." Because I do think like you signing up to be this person's support structure, the person that they give all the ideas to. I was sending my partner yesterday, I was sending her like an ad that I made on my phone. And she's just like so proud. And then I know that if I put this out, it might not bang. I'm like trying to like consolidate these things. But yeah, I think it's an extreme sport. It's an extreme sport.
So, I mean, a lot of people, someone says here, you sound like you're about to get married. Wayne Maluleke says you're about to, you've got that like stable sound going on, which is true. Sanele says, in my household, wine is not considered alcohol, Gareth. It's just an alternative to coffee and water. We start considering it drinking at vodka, gin, or spirits. Woo! Ooh, some dodgy livers going on here. Very bad livers. Carl says, I'm obviously kidding, because he was saying earlier he drinks like a lot of Jameson, but he says he has maybe one at dinner to just calm his tits after a tough day. 2 kids and 2 businesses. I cannot afford to drink 8 a day. Okay, well, we're relieved about that. B says, I have a client who came to my salon with wine in her son's sippy cup. She just said, don't judge. It's been rough. Oof. Oh, my God. Well, I saw an ad, Simphiwe, yesterday on, and they're plugging this a lot, an ad on TV for the one of the Real Housewives shows, which I know we talk about from time to time. Yes. So it looks, Simphiwe, it looks so bad, right? I mean,
I'm so excited.
Oh, it's so bad.
I'm excited. No. If there's one that I'm excited about, it's Pretoria. What they even guys, I'm so excited. They did a bit of a profile of the ladies that are going to be on. And one of the ladies is the founder of Tammy Taylor Nails.
That's amazing.
Right? So she's built an incredible business and now she's going to be on the show. And I'm just like, yes, when I want to see how you made the millions, how you built this up. But I'm also just curious to see how like white rich ladies in South Africa live. I am like, I've never seen it. I want to see it. I'm here for it. You guys are based in Pretoria even. Let's go. This is the one. You know, the people that have wealth, real wealth, it's these ones. Watch it. It's going to be entertaining. I can already tell you. You wasted your time with the Cape Town one. I knew from the jump. Cape Town has nothing going for it except the beautiful scenery. The drama was not going to be worth it. But fun beat. Oh, it's the Real Housewives of, you know, Cape. No, this one, Fun Pretoria. You know it's going down.
All right,
you know it's going down.
So I saw the ad, and I had to go and wash my hands afterwards. I was like, what the hell did I just do? but there's a lot of plastic surgery going on there too, right?
Oh yes, honey. There are Botox, lipo. You know, the titties have been boosted, and they are a couple bigger. They are definitely not how they looked when they were 16. But I'm excited because they're competing. So there's so many out there, right? There's Potomac, there is Beverly Hills, New York, right? And this particular one has really gotten international attention because everyone's also shocked by the fact that they've changed the name a bit because it's like it's the Real Housewives of whatever. And now it's like the Real Housewife fun, and they're like, who are these ladies that even get to change the name of the franchise? What do they do? So it's even gotten international attention before it's gone live. I think they're gonna kill it. And I'm excited. Like they've gotten a bit of backlash to say, are Pretoria ladies that interesting? Yes, they are. It's Pretoria.
I'm happy. I can pick up on your energy around this, and that kind of makes me smile, but I just can't find it in me to watch TV shows like that anymore. And I know it's probably just because I'm a boring old fuck, but I really, like, I see these women and I'm like, what are they going to do? They're going to be sitting on TV fighting. They're going to be trying to outdo each other. These are exactly the kind of women that I try to avoid in my life because they don't make me happy. They genuinely make me very anxious. That kind of world where you've got these girls like competing for attention from the cameras in this case, or from men, or from money, or from whatever. It just drives me crazy. I can't imagine a worse way to live. It must be so exhausting.
I find it interesting how these ladies actually are able to do like multiple seasons with each other because most of them don't like each other. Like in real life, they don't like each other. And now you have to do a whole season where you're spending 80% of your life with someone you don't like. No wonder they get so drunk and they do all these barbaric things because they're just like, who are you to tell me that I don't look cute? And it goes. And I think that's what makes it entertaining. Obviously, it's also scripted. So that part of me is kind of like, let it go. Everything is written. The drama that they've kind of built up, it's not real. But I think it's just interesting putting a light in how South Africans spend their money. We are big spenders, but it's always cool to see how different groups spend their money. Like as a black chick, I see guys go to Konka. And I know if you're a baller, you're going to Konka, and that's what you do. Now I'm seeing how, the white ladies do it. And I'm like, okay, maybe we mustn't be going to clubs. Maybe we need to go to,
People write Pretoria off. They think Pretoria is this very traditional conservative place. And, it's where the president sits and it's where you've got all the embassies. And, I'll tell you what, Pretoria's got a lot of money. There are parts of Pretoria where you will not believe the amount of money that's floating around, and it slides under the radar because it's not Joburg, doesn't get the attention Joburg does. It's not Cape Town because Cape Town's beautiful. There's a season in Cape Town where everybody comes out to play, but Pretoria is much more low key. So if anything, the only reason I would pay attention to this is to see, first of all, if there's anyone on there that I know, because I grew up in Pretoria. So that'll be interesting. Just see if there's anyone. I mean, I probably won't end up watching this. So I'm not going to make any promises. You remember how we said we would watch certain shows and we would keep up to date, and I didn't even get to watch one. But this one I'll try really hard. See if there's anyone I know. Second of all, see, kind of what these people do, what their husbands do if it's not them that made the money, and kind of figure out, because Pretoria plays it down. And there's a lot of money floating around in Pretoria. It is the capital city. Never forget. There's a lot that happens here.
Yes. I'm also excited to see like a different side of it. I think the side of Pretoria I've seen is Hatfield. And we all know how ratchet Hatfield is. So I'm excited to see like the grown-up version of Pretoria, and like, where do people hang out? Like, what do they do? What activities are there? Because as you said, like most of the time we think Joburg and Cape Town. Oh, now and again, maybe Mpumalanga as destinations of, let's do something, let's go. And now Pretoria is right here saying, okay, we got the money and this is how we spend the money. And I think from that perspective, I'm excited. I'm over the moon. But we'll see. Maybe they'll disappoint me, like, Cape Town ladies. We'll see.
Well, Mashudu's never been so bored about a subject in his life.
Listen, I don't know these references. I don't know these references.
He doesn't give a shit about any of this stuff. He's like, what a stupid waste of time. Simphiwe and Gareth can't. The fact that they're even talking about this is embarrassing. No, I get it, dude.
No, absolutely not. I don't judge. This is the balance we were talking about. Like, you have to have interest outside of your work, right? And I just don't give a shit about Real Housewives.
Yeah, me neither. But if I did want to, if I did have to watch one of these shows, I wouldn't mind them doing like some really shitty place. Like if they did the Real Housewives of Welkom. I mean, imagine how shit that would be. Imagine.
That might be good.
Really bad.
That might be good.
Oh no! Please God.
No,
all right, Mashudu, just before we say goodbye to you, tell us about where we can find you and your podcast and everything else, because I'm sure there are lots of people who will want to catch up with you, and we must get you back at some point in the future, because I've seen some very nice comments. People have really enjoyed you being on today.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I appreciate being in the space as well. So I'm building out a podcast network as well. By the way, I met you about 5 years ago, maybe. And I told you about this right after, actually, it was not 5 years ago. I'm not sure how long ago this was, but it was very much recently after you launched Cliff Central. And I remember speaking to you just thinking, this guy really is trying to build something meaningful and change media for the better. So I really appreciate the platform, but also the opportunity to just have this moment, right? So thank you for that.
Sure.
So I'm on every single social media, unfortunately, a social media addict. So Mash Startup on every single platform. Literally, I dance on TikTok. I try and do things on YouTube. I'm posting pretentious things about my life on Instagram. I'm being very thoughtful and meaningful on Twitter. I'm doing it all. Right?
Good.
So please,
you need to do it all.
On all those platforms. And then you can just go onto lucha.com. That's where we have my podcast, really speaking to entrepreneurs, creators, people that are trying to build things from Africa, but for the world as well. So yeah, really appreciated the time and the space. Thank you so much.
Well, Carl says, yes, this Mashudu must come back. He's lekker. So there we go. Lots of comments.
That's the best
that's
the best compliment you can get. Lekker is everything, right?
Yeah, but that is from the same guy who told us he drinks 8 Jamesons a day. So I don't know if you should take it that serious.
True.
No, fair enough. All right. Thank you so much, Mashudu. What a pleasure to have you on this morning. Mashudu Modau. And we will catch up with him again soon. You can follow him at Lutcha, LUTCHA.com. And that is where the podcast is. And we're always trying to help other people get their podcasts up and going. This guy's been at it for a long time, and it's already up and going and doing very well. So if you want to know more, especially if you want to follow the startups, that is the place to be with Mashudu. Nice to have you on the show. Thank you very much. There's Mashudu. We're going to join Anthony Mederer now, who, of course, is the co-host of Blind History with me. How are you, Ant?
Great. How's it, Gareth? How's it, Simphiwe?
Good to see you.
Great to see you too. We're in Cape Town.
What's your weather like down there at the moment? We're in the middle of a heat wave, and everybody is sweating, and it's only 7:30 in the morning, and we're sweating.
So we're cold down here. Summer only gets in November.
Yeah.
Simphiwe, well, I'm just saying that Cape Town's got the biggest swinger community. So we were talking a little bit earlier about Pretoria. Maybe that's something to look into later.
I've heard stories about Pretoria, especially the east of Pretoria, and some of the shit that goes down there, and it's not boring either. Yeah. Tell you what. All right. Let's talk a little bit about something I've wanted to get you on the show for a long time to talk about, because it's one of your passions. You're also involved in businesses around this, but sharks, people are fascinated by sharks. My 2 little nephews are absolutely shark mad, and they are 6 and 8 years old. They actually went down to the Cape with my brother and got to do shark cage diving, which is one of the most incredible experiences you can have, according to them. But you've been looking at this from a conservation point of view, the shark nets. You've spoken to every expert that you could possibly wish to meet in South Africa when it comes to sharks, and everybody else is talking about it because of these attacks in Plett. So let's just start off with those, because they're in the news. Just the other day, a woman was eaten by a shark in Plett. Well, she was bitten, and then, of course, she bled out, because once you get bitten by these sharks, it's not a huge amount of chance that you'll pull through because you have such blood loss. And mostly the sharks aren't actually that interested in eating you, right? This is something that Simphiwe and I were freaked out by. They don't want to eat you. We don't taste nice to them. You were telling us in the studio the other day, usually they're just curious and inquisitive, and they think that you might be nice, and then when they taste you, they go, not for me.
Yeah, so these, we like to refer to them as shark accidents, which is what happened a couple of weeks in Plett, and it's very, there's always a very sad side to it. It's definitely mistaken identity, and it's an exploratory bite, but they're so powerful that just one bite from them, and look what happened. The lady did bleed out, and in 3 months before that, there was a gentleman swimming. He was reckless in the fact that they warned him, and it was also one bite. So both of those incidents, they are curious. In the instance of the lady a couple of weeks ago, it was early in the morning, and they're hunting. So they're hunting for fish. In this instance, it was a great white. They're happy to scratch their bellies on the ground, so they don't mind what depth they're at. And he saw this. He or she saw this this swimming in the water, and then he just took a bite, and then he left the scene. And even when there's blood around, people think with all the blood that the shark's going to come back and finish you off. But the shark had already left the scene. Great whites are very picky eaters, and
Really?
they're not. Yeah, you look at the bull shark and the tiger shark. Bull shark we call Zambezi here. They're a little bit more scavengy, so they will be a little bit more indiscriminate when it comes to eating. But great whites are very picky. So and within seconds of the bite, the calorie value, they pick it up straight away. So she was a small lady, no value, left the scene, but what it's created. I was in Plett yesterday and the day before, just meeting there, and it's, from a tourist perspective, I mean, and the local communities that swim in the sea, that now everybody's very scared to swim. When I was there, the beaches were empty. Right in front of Beacon Isle, it happened right in front of Beacon Isle, and there's a lot. We saw 2 great whites standing on the top. You can see them in the water, and so
Wow.
But it's so nice to see. I have to just temper my enthusiasm there, because it's almost like seeing dinosaurs now. You're lucky enough to see 2 or 3 dinosaurs, and we were seeing 2 or 3 great whites. I promise you, the population's collapsing, and it's there's another side to the story about the killing of sharks, and it's on a massive scale globally, and this just drives the hysteria. But I have to say, I was extremely impressed. So maybe let me start that was actually so nice to listen to Mashudu this morning, because I invested in a startup that was born out of Stellenbosch University, and which developed this product that doesn't kill sharks, but it also protects people from shark incidents. So we went there to talk about it, and we've got on our board of directors, we've got some very, we've got doctors in marine biology and that. So that was very exciting, and the people in Plett, and we met the council and we met the action groups, etc., and they're all very they're very positive and pro the fact that they've got this beautiful apex predator, swimming around there. But you have to do something, because I mean, you just come out of COVID, and tourism was struggling. Now you've got this type of problem. So it's a balance you got to find between the.
So, and just before we get into the sharks, because I want you to actually tell the story of where the Jaws, legend came from, because there's an actual series of events that happened in America that led to, Jaws, obviously the book, and then later on the movies. But your involvement in sharks, you mentioned the startup that you're involved in now, which is terrific, and you guys are doing amazing work there to kind of keep people safe, but also, as you say, not kill the sharks, because they get tangled up in these nets and then they die.
100%. Yeah.
And we have such a threatened population of these, and they are amazing and magnificent and beautiful creatures, but people don't want to be near them. How did you get involved in sharks? Where did your interest start?
Well, my interest started when I was very, very young. My guidance council teacher, his name was Donnie Skumman, and Donnie and Fani, the parents really had a lot of creativity naming them. They used to, they big fishermen here in the bay, in False Bay, and they used to talk about these big great whites that just jump over their boats, and then people just used to think, like you were talking about, drinking a bit, so these guys drink too much. And he kept giving us shark stories. I think he was my religious instruction teacher or something. I don't think he was guidance, something like that. And he never guided us anywhere except to tell us about these shark stories. And I don't think I ever outgrew it. And then I actually joined the Natal Sharks Board. That's how keen I was. And it's almost the anti of what we try to do now, because the Sharks Board basically culls sharks, and that there's very little sharks. There are, they do catch the big sharks now on the Natal coast, but the bycatch is just frightening. So irrespective of the fact that you're killing these beautiful apex predators, you're also killing dolphins, turtles, whatever it is. It's so.
Jeez.
But that's a whole different story, and you have to, there's tourism, and so I don't want to necessarily get into that now. But that was where the interest sparked my interest. But also, as you know very well, I've always loved business, much like Mashudu was saying, entrepreneurship, and trying, getting into different types of businesses. And so, I was lucky enough to build a few businesses, and so now later on in my life, I've had the chance to try and give back in some way, and these are some areas that I feel I can add value.
Well, you are. Tell us a little bit about the sharks, because even though you're not a marine biologist, you've got such knowledge about these things, and you talked about it with me a while ago, and I was fascinated. We'll get into the stories in a second, but what do sharks like to eat, and what is our population looking like on the coast of South Africa?
So look, there's many species of sharks, and they eat different. They have different prey. They have different types of teeth. Some of them have teeth that look a little bit like pavements. Some have teeth like. I'll give you an example, because a lot of people are interested in the two charismatic sharks, which we have the great white, which has got serrated triangular teeth in the top and the bottom of the jaw. A bull shark's got serrated teeth in the top and more of a crocodile type looking tooth in the bottom. So often a bull shark attack is you look like a chicken bone afterwards. It's literally just pulls everything off. So it's devastating, a bite from it. And even if it's an exploratory bite, it's quite. Whereas a great white, sometimes you're lucky enough it can bite clean through, and if it doesn't get your femoral artery or something, a lot of people survive a great white shark attack. But effectively, they eat fish. Yes, it's mostly fish. The bull sharks, etc. The tiger sharks can eat anything. They eat garbage cans. They're very. They're the garbage collectors of the oceans. But the great whites are very, very picky. It's actually so funny that and this is the education that we need to really try and do, is that they're very curious. They are not reckless. That they watch very carefully. They are absolutely not what like Jaws portrayed, etc., etc. They're also, because they know that they're a great white. It's like this famous saying you always say, how does a lion know he's a lion? Well, he's a lion. He doesn't need to tell you he's a lion. And so they are, when they're in the area and they start getting comfortable, they start, let me look at this, and they're making some inquiries, and they all have personalities. Some are aggressive, some are playful, some are quiet and shy. And so it's fascinating the more we find out in the technology. The reason why people are speaking a lot about these incidents in Plett is we've got the technology now, like drones, etc., to look closer at them.
Yeah.
And you're seeing so much more. And people are free diving with great whites. So we met a gentleman who's doing a film for the BBC. And his footage is incredible. He's doing it in Plett. He's swimming in 6-7 meters of water, with clean water, with the great white swimming over him and around him, and that's his livelihood. So it's I think
So tell me, and we've got a couple of questions. Sorry to interrupt you, but I saw Carl's question here. Then this relates to what you were just talking about. Are you more likely to be eaten if you are fat? Please tell me the fatties are more likely to be eaten by sharks.
Well, the calorie value is then obviously higher, so maybe there would be more interest. So
all right.
So I think possibly.
Gavin says there's been a proposal from some shark cage operators in Simonstown to move cage diving operations as close as 1.5 kilometers inshore within the Strandfontein area in Cape Town. That is less than 10 kilometers away from Muizenberg, which is absolutely crazy and dangerous considering what just happened. This will obviously have a huge effect, he carries on on bathers, surfers, anglers in the area, but it's of no consideration due to 1 or 2 operators that apparently can't find sharks on Seal Island any longer. Like, where do you find these? You mentioned Plett. So if you wanted to go shark cage diving, where can you go?
It's actually very hard now, to be honest. Gans Bay is very thin. They in the last month, and I can sort of just give some perspective to Gavin there a little bit, but if you're flying from Germany and you want to come and dive with apex predators, it's a little bit different diving with a great white shark or a bronze whaler. So what they're talking about here, so the bronze whalers are or copper sharks, what we call them, is the ones that now you see a lot of. They've replaced the great whites. The great whites are gone. So there are no great whites in False Bay, and where they're talking about this particular area, the bronze whaler sharks, which is a different species of shark, it gets big, but it's I don't think there's ever been an attack on a human in its history. It's just that's not what it does. Smaller mouth, etc. But at least people see these beautiful animals, when they're cage diving. But it's the only shark they can see, and it doesn't feed on seals, so it's not really interested. So it actually operates closer to the beach. The shark that was was causing all the trouble, that was implicated in the attacks in Plett and Strandfontein, which you mentioned, Gavin, was the most populated great white area in the world in summer months in the 80s. There's not one great white in the bay. I mean, I can't say that unequivocally because we haven't.
Sure.
But there's people look all the time, and you know if they're there or not, and they're not here. They've gone mainly because of demersal fishing. So they eat fish, although they eat seals. The fish have been fished out, so there's no food here. There's a percentage of them that's been chased by the orcas, but they would come back, and we just really, really hope that they do come back. So that's a small portion. So there's a percentage of it where the orcas have chased them. And what the orcas do, they grab them, turn them on their back, and then they go into that comb, and then they bite out their liver. So,
jeez.
So
wow.
And then the
talk about a precision kill, hey? So that's what the killer whales do. They actually turn them over, and they just want the liver.
Correct. And because when you turn a shark onto its back and side, it can go into a very calm, almost like a coma for a split second, and then that's when they do it. And there's been a few big great whites that have been killed in Gans Bay, for that matter, by orcas, and orcas chasing them around here. So they say, look, I don't want to be here. So they've also left. So we've got 7 gill cow sharks. So they're not the charismatic sharks, to be honest. So it's but they're still beautiful. And I suppose that's what the cage diving guys are saying, is that, look, these are not dangerous sharks. We have a business, so can we do this? I can guarantee you, if there were great whites here, there's not a hope that they'd ever get this past. But you don't want to I suppose you don't really necessarily want to open that up, because if the great whites do come back, and we are really hoping they do, then it could really be a very dangerous situation.
So, and just tell us the story of Jaws and how that came about, because Jaws has done probably more to damage the reputation of sharks than anything else. I mean, great movie, Steven Spielberg, terrific director. He really, in some ways, popularized and made people aware, people who've never lived at the coast or people who never paid attention to the sea, of what sharks were. And in the 80s, this was a huge movie, and it was tremendously successful. People loved it because it's scary as hell, but it's done nothing good for sharks, right?
Yeah. So look, I mean, it's especially straight after the movie and the next decade. I mean, you were seen as a hero if you could kill a shark. I mean, you would see pictures of scuba divers straddling sharks, killing them with knives, shooting them with power heads. It was very sad to see that. And Peter Benchley, in his book, inadvertently, he created this mass hysteria. But there is some, as you know, with history, we really love telling stories. And And there's some really interesting stories to tell, but there's reasons behind everything, and why things happen. There's certain behaviors that happen. It's not, a shark is not an indiscriminate killer and just looking to kill humans. I mean, I think we have much more dangerous sharks leaning against lampposts in Sea Point or in Sandton. You know, but ultimately we talk about this attack. It was called the Jersey Shore shark attacks, and if anybody's really interested to listen to it, effectively there were 4 shark attacks within 3 months, which is quite quick. We look at Plett now, which caused big hysteria. There's two shark attacks in 3 months. But what happened in the Jersey Shore and shark attacks was, and then Peter Benchley looked at this, and you know, there's a lot of parts of it that are in Jaws, and then also a famous shark hunter is also that he used to spend time with. He's also part of the Jaws, part of the book. But effectively, one guy was killed. So it was a massive heat wave. It's the hottest that had been in living memory on the east coast of the United States. And people were flocking to the beaches. And if you've seen the pictures in there, people used to go to the beaches. It looked like dressed in their pajamas, like this fancy white kit with frilly hats, the doilies everywhere. And they basically didn't, they put their big toe in, and then that was it, because it was too much of a mission with all the clothes they had on.
Exactly.
You know, we didn't, nobody was running around in these speedos, that's for sure. So there was nobody really swimming, and at that time, funny enough, nobody realized how, you know, that sharks can cause damage if you get caught in the wrong side, you know, the wrong end of them. So there was a man killed in a place called Beach Haven. You probably know it quite well, Gareth. You've traveled around there. It's actually just below New York. You know, just going a little bit. And
I haven't really been to Jersey, but you said that you know, so there's obviously a couple of conditions that make it good for these very big sharks. You need warm water, right? And sometimes some sort of inlet, like an estuary or a river emptying into the sea. Is that true?
Yeah. So that's, but okay. So the great whites can operate in most seas in the world because they can regulate their temperature. It's phenomenal what they do. They've got this membrane, this membrane of or web of their arteries covering their red muscles, and when they're swimming and they're moving, those red muscles heat up these arteries, and they actually heat the shark up, that it goes to the senses like their eyes and their brain and their stomach, and they're much better at hunting than, because in cold water where everybody's lethargic, or they are lethargic, they've got energy. So it's incredible what they can do. So they can swim, and the water's not that warm in that particular area, but there is a debate, because this was a very, very warm, it was an abnormal time. And this first shark attack was on the coast. It was in the sea, and then a little bit further up, 40 miles, 70 kilometers up, a week later, another man was killed. And so that was 2 attacks in literally in a week. But then what happened was, just further north, there's a little creek, Matawin Creek it's called. And there's a very small entrance, literally a very small entrance, and into this creek. And so a shark, now there's a big debate if it's a bull shark, which we call a Zambezi, or if it's a great white. Nobody 100% knows. There's so much talk and a lot of bullshit that was spoken afterwards. But effectively, a shark went in there and killed 2 people and nearly killed a third in an afternoon. And so maybe the shark was traumatized. And just to understand, when we say killed, and in the beginning you said eaten, and that they don't eat people. It's just one bite. I don't know what this is, and normally it's just one bite.
You are not making Simphiwe feel any better, and she's been so quiet during this discussion that I almost thought that
I'm on the shark
she's been
side.
traumatized. I know. So Simphiwe, I mean, let's go with your questions about this. I don't know if you even want to go into the sea after hearing about these sharks. You're on mute. Simphiwe, you're on mute. Sorry.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry.
So I just want to know, if I ever found myself in the sea and I see the shark, is there anything I can do to prevent it biting me or being interested in me
Yeah.
and
Yes,
walking
good
out
question. Yes.
alive?
Yeah.
What can we
So
do?
look, I mean, let's be honest. I don't think many of us have been in this position where that's going to happen. But the theory is that you really are actually, if you're having a good day if you see the shark, because then he's allowed you to see him. So you're really in a good position. So more than likely he's not going to do anything. And I think that if you make enough noise and splashing, and they're really, what's going on here? They're not reckless. They don't want to hurt themselves, so they're going to move away. So you have a very good chance of surviving. I think most of the people that have been bitten by sharks see them at the last minute, right at the very end. And I have to be so careful. I think that the stories that I'd like to tell is to maybe show a little bit more, the behavior, instead of, this indiscriminate killer, but maybe the sea was warmer, or there was a reason why they were in that particular area, or that the shark got frightened, he was jammed in a creek, or etc. So there's a lot more to it than that, and that's number one. And number two, I think there's 11, 12 people killed per year, that are killed by sharks in unprovoked attacks. It's a very, very small number. You've got a seriously tiny chance of being bitten. But I just think that the nature of it, being bitten by something under the water you can't see, creates this this hysteria. And if you're swimming in the day, it's like going into the bush and the lions are sleeping under a tree. They're between 10 and 3. They're not really going to be too interested in tackling people. And the sharks hunt in the early morning and the late evening, but during the day, from 10 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, there's even less of a chance of encountering a big shark. So it's such a difficult thing to try to find the balance and to calm people, and I don't think my Jersey Shore shark attacks really helped, but
you know what? I mean, it's exceedingly rare that you have these stories, and really your chances of being bitten by a shark when you're in the sea are way, way smaller than having car accidents, plane accidents, all of the other stuff that we're exposed to and we expose ourselves to on a daily basis. And of course, these poor animals are just doing what they've done for millions of years. I mean, a shark, they've been sharks in our oceans for longer than they've been humans on land. And we therefore have to remember our place in all of this, right?
And I think, and also, and humans are doing a great job in making sure that they're probably going to not see, the next century. It's it's that's the sad part of it, is that it's the great white, which apex predator. There's a lot of debate, and I think, thank God I'm not a marine biologist, because there's a lot of infighting, there's a lot of politics, but there's this, it's collapsing. It's False Bay. You can swim with a piece of whale meat on your back around Seal Island, and you'll be fine. Actually, you'll make the swim.
God, that's unbelievable. That's really bad for the sharks. So Lighthouse Barber says, I can't enjoy the beach anymore. I'm over it. It's safer in the garden. So exactly the opposite of what you were just saying.
That's opposite what I'm trying to create. But there's communities where there's shark activity. There's the communities are working towards finding solutions, and that's where I invested in this startup, because it's such a good idea that it only affects their sensors in their nose, and so they don't like the magnets, so they don't really like going near there, and they won't, and it's proven that. And then so the people are safe. You don't create that conflict. They don't come in together with each other, and then then it's okay. And then those type of things we should be doing, and maybe taking out the shark nets and the drum lines. Drum line is just a baited hook, and then putting things in place that are that look after both, so that people can enjoy themselves in the sea, and then at the same time, you can also, behind the back line in the deeper water, you can see these incredible creatures or animals that are there. So I think that there's definitely a way of being able to go to the going to swim and maybe not spending the summer in your garden only.
So what about these Lighthouse Barber is also saying here, I bought one of those shark bands to protect me. Turns out whites attack from far away, straight for a target. Nothing that the shark bands can do. Costs 1,200 from the surf shops. Don't waste your money. What do you say to that, Ant?
So there is some information that came out, and I can't verify if it's true, but the gentleman that was killed 3 months ago in Plett had 2 on his arm that was bitten off. So it's effectively there's a big debate about it, but if you now are committed to this prey that you think's a prey, and you are when you're committed, they got different senses to us. He's a bit away and he's having a look. He or she's having a look, and then he says, "Okay, I'm committed. I'm going to find out what this is." And he comes in, and by the time he gets into the zone of that band, he's already committed. And so that's 100% that the comment made now is that that doesn't help you at all at that stage. Right. So the shark needs to get quite close to you first, and sort of almost be wanting to hug you first or something before I think it can actually work. So I agree with that.
Wendy says, "Don't ever wee in the sea because the sharks will come and get you." That's also absolutely true, right? Weeing in the sea makes no difference. All right,
but you can.
This is amazing. You will shit yourself. Oh no, you'll shit yourself for sure. Listen, we're out of time, but this is something I think clearly people are very, very interested in. And thank you for sharing this Beachcomber guide. The Paddlewoman Trail here says, excellent shark information. Education is what we need. And that's absolutely one of the reasons we got you on this morning. But thank you for being part of the show. And as always, we will catch you on the next episode of Blind History.
Fantastic. Great to see all of you.
Amazing. All right, and thank you so much. Simphiwe, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our other guests, as well as to you for being around, listening to it, paying attention, giving us the comments, giving us hell when we're not doing the right thing. We will see you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m.